it's Miss Julianne from the Wakanda Area Library, and this month for STEM Club, we're learning all about penguins, or in Spanish, pingüinos, which is what I like to call them. So, penguins are so cool. A lot of times we think they often live in the cold, right? We think of penguins and we think of ice, we think of snow, but a lot of them actually live in warmer climates. And they live in something called the Southern Hemisphere. So that is anything below the equator. So we live in the Northern Hemisphere above the equator. So the closest the penguins naturally get to us, I mean, we may see them in zoos or aquariums, is in the Galapagos Islands, which is like right next to the equator. So there's all sorts of types of penguins. In fact, there's over 17 types of penguins. But there's something they all have in common. They swim, and they swim, and they swim, right? They have a really hard time flying. In fact, they don't fly at all. But some say they fly through the water. Well, how do penguins then keep themselves from getting too cold or too hot if they're spending all that kind of time in the water? Well, they are technically waterproof. So what's waterproof? Well, that just means it repels water. So penguins have a special type of oil that they can get out of their glands, so part of their skin, and then with their beak, they go ahead and move it throughout their feathers. And when they do this, it's called preening. And that allows their feathers to have this coating of this type of oil that will then repel the water. So you can see in this picture here that the penguin kind of has bubbles coming out of the water, just like we would see on bubbles on, say, a rain jacket or a deck that your grown-ups may have painted to be waterproofed. So it repels water, so it will turn it into like little beads. So you might even see this in a material called neoprene, which is what people use when they are going diving or sometimes surfing. And it's something that allows surfers or divers to stay warm or keep their temperature controlled without the water affecting them. And again, it will beat up the water or repel the water off of it. So what penguins do is they preen, and all penguins do this, whether they live in a warm climate or a cold climate, they preen. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with that. As some of you may know, sometimes there's oil spills or accidents in the ocean. And then that means oil gets all over the penguins. And then people have to come and help them. And normally penguins wouldn't interact with humans, but humans want to help the penguins, so they might try to clean them off. And for quite some time, and starting in about 2011, people were putting together knitting sweaters for penguins. And people thought it was so cute. And we're like, yeah, it's a great way once we've cleaned the penguin to protect them from getting like oil. Because if you get oil on your feathers, if you're a penguin, right? And then you go to preen, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to swallow that oil and it's going to make you feel all icky inside. And so no one wanted a penguin to feel icky. But it turns out we're finding more and more about penguins, and penguins have a hard time doing temperature control without the preening. So if we put a sweater on a penguin, although it looks super cute, there becomes a problem. The penguin can get overheated. Or if there's any oil left on its feathers, it gets stuck up against its skin. Would you like oil up against your skin? No. So although we thought it might have been a good idea to begin with, it turns out, although it's cute, penguins don't belong in sweaters. I mean, they're already naturally dressed up as it is. They already look like they're in their tuxedos. So just if you hear about that, because that is something very popular on the internet, penguins don't belong in sweaters. Penguins belong in their natural tuxedos. So preening is their way of distributing the oil. So what we're going to do today for our science experiment is we're going to color. And we're going to color our penguin in crayon. And you have a choice between two different penguins. The emperor penguin, which is really tall, and the tallest of the penguins at about 4 feet. And then you have the macaroni penguin, which is one of my favorites. I actually have a rock hopper on my head. Can see with this little guy, but macaronis have the same thing, and they have just a little bit over here with their tufts. I like them because A, they're named after a noodle, and B, they have cool little yellow tufts. I mean, you can't beat that. So you get to choose between coloring a macaroni penguin or an emperor, or you could choose to color both. And what you're gonna do is when you color it with your crayons, and it has to be crayons, crayons are made out of wax, which naturally repels water, a lot like the oil of a penguin's feathers. And when you're all done coloring, you're gonna then take your little pipette, you're gonna suck up some water, and then let it go onto your penguin and see what happens. In fact, I'll show you next. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and I colored my penguin. I chose the macaroni penguin. You can color both if you want. As you can also see, I did not follow science when coloring my penguin, so you do not either. I think it's kind of limiting to only have like black, yellow, white, maybe blue. So I went ahead and I used my imagination and I decided, what if the macaroni penguin looked like macaroni? So I used all sorts of oranges and yellows, and I envisioned my macaroni penguin as macaroni and cheese. I think it looks kind of cool. So then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna put your pipette into the water and you're gonna squeeze the top until you see a little bit of the water come up. So I squeezed mine, and you can see, and you don't need that much water. And then you're just gonna go bloop, 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 bloop. You can choose to make sound effects or not. But look at what's happening to the water. What's happening? Is the paper absorbing the water? It's not, right? This is just like what we would see on a real penguin. This is what we might see on a waterproof deck, maybe, that your parents painted, or on a rain jacket, right? So instead of being absorbed, the water just kind of bubbles, right? So what happens is, and this is why it's very important to use wax crayons, or crayons, is because crayons have wax, and wax repels water, just like the oil in penguin feathers repels water. So it's very important that penguins are able to preen to move that oil around their feathers, so this happens to water when it hits their real life feathers. But we can recreate that with crayons, because crayons are made out of wax, and water. Before I say goodbye, I just wanted to add a quick little fact. So, you know, things are kind of cold, and they might be getting a little icy this month and maybe next, maybe even a little snowy. Well, we all know penguins waddle, right? Well, they waddle because it distributes their weight evenly so they don't fall. So if you ever see that it's icy, I want you to waddle like a penguin. It will help distribute your weight so you don't fall. And I have one more fun fact, actually. It leads to a fun prize. If you've been watching this video and you come down to Kid City all the way till January 20th, you can come on down to Kid City in the library, and if you waddle like a penguin for us at the desk, we'll give you a penguin-themed prize. So I hope to see you guys soon. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please come on down and waddle like a penguin at the library. Bye!